Thanks, Mr. Speaker, and somewhat pleased, somewhat not pleased to be rising today on this Opposition Day motion. You have to wonder, in what world do you have a country so blessed with natural resources has to have members of Parliament stand up to advocate for actually developing and selling the resources?
Exactly.
Only in Canada do you have that. Now, I want to quote the dearly departed Rex Murphy. He was talking on a very similar bill brought forward from the Liberals. It was Bill C-50, but applies today. He offered up a title for it. He calls "An Act to Inspire and Lubricate in All Manners Facilitate the Separation of Alberta from Canada." Now, this is very much what this government seems hell-bent on. At a time when separatist leanings are on the rise in Alberta, along comes this Liberal government to try and make things worse. President Reagan famously stated the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm here from the government and I'm here to help." But with this government, it seems to be saying, "I'm from the Liberal government and I'm here to make things worse." Now, I want to start by listing all the countries in the world that have an oil and gas cap. It's none. Not a single country in the world has an oil and gas production cap or an emissions cap. Just to be sure, I asked ChatGPT if they could name any, and it came back, "I couldn't find credible evidence that any oil-producing country has in place a regulatory cap." There are effectively no other countries that have a cap on oil and gas production emissions. I looked far and wide, no one else does it. So why are the Liberals the only government in the world looking to have their country commit basically economic suicide? And that's basically what an oil and gas cap is. Now, the Fraser Institute just came out with a report showing the last 5 years, GDP growth per capita has been the worst since the Great Depression. That is, the wealth creation has been the worst since the Great Depression the last 5 years, which of course coincides with the 5 years the current Prime Minister was the economic advisor to Justin Trudeau. So here we have the economic advisor for the worst 5-year performance for our economy, our wealth creation, since the Great Depression. So what's their solution to all this? What's their solution to our issues of rising unemployment, catastrophic youth unemployment, a productivity crisis? Well, let's push the economy off the cliff altogether. I want to quote some chilling numbers from the Conference Board of Canada on what will result from an oil and gas cap. We previously heard the Parliamentary Budget Officer state some numbers, but this is from the Conference Board. To illustrate the magnitude of the impact, under the most likely scenario, the cumulative reduction in GDP over 11-year forecast would be $597 billion in nominal terms between 2030 and 2040. So almost $600 billion loss in GDP. We have a productivity crisis, as mentioned. The most productive work in the country, the most value add, is from our oil and gas industry. And the government is bent on destroying it. The report further says real GDP in the oil and gas sector alone will be reduced between 14 and 27 billion, 11% from the baseline. It says total employment will be a loss of 151,000 jobs by 2030, boosting unemployment despite a modest reduction in the labor workforce participation rates. So they're saying that even with less workers in our economy, unemployment's going to go up. Put that in context, 151,000 jobs. There's about 26 million people working in Canada out of a population of about 42 million. So that would be the equivalent of every single person in Burnaby working currently now would be without a job. Every single person in Kitchener, Ontario would be without a job. Longueuil, Windsor, every single person. That is what this government will do. Manufacturing will also take a hit to lose about 10,000 jobs by 2030. Members from the Liberals from Ontario, who do you think is buying all those Ford F-150s? Construction workers, oil and gas workers in Alberta. Manufacturing will be wiped out. Commercial services employment will drop by 52,000. And slackness in the labor market will contribute to a 1% reduction in nominal wages. We're already having an issue right now with dropping wages. Apart from this government flooding the country with temporary foreign workers, blocking young people from able to take jobs, but also suppress wages. So the government wants to come along and say, hey, I'm here from the Liberal government. I'm here to make things worse. For Alberta, now I'm hoping I will see the Liberal member from Edmonton Centre rise in this House to speak on this motion, to see what she has to say, or the member from Calgary Confederation. I'd like to see them stand up for Alberta in today's debate, because this is what the conference board says is going to happen to Alberta. Real GDP in Alberta will decline $28.5 billion. We're looking at a $6 billion deficit in Alberta this year, and the government wants to take another $28 billion. About a 7% drop in our GDP relative to a baseline for 2030. Alberta's GDP will decline a further $31 billion per year between 2030 and 2040 in real dollars. $30 billion, that's almost the total money we spend on health care in the province right now. And this Liberal government wants to take that money away for no reason. So I really do look forward to the member from Edmonton Centre and the Liberal member from Calgary Confederation to stand in this House and explain why they're going to back the Liberal government in trying to shut down our economy. The report continues. Unemployment, of course, will be shut. 102,000 less jobs in Alberta. But the report goes on. There is some good news from the report from the Liberals' attempt to destroy our economy. Here's the great news. There is an upside. Because of the negative economic impacts of the oil and gas production cap, we will be slightly mitigated by lower interest rates and the depreciation of the Canadian dollar. Why? Because we'll have economic collapse. It was quite funny watching the Minister of Finance last week cheer. It's a great day for Canada. Interest rates dropped. He doesn't seem to realize interest rates are dropping because the economy is in the tank. It's collapsing. A lower economic output results in lower interest rates. And this finance minister is cheering it on. He doesn't seem to understand low interest rates are a problem. So we are going to see lower interest rates because of lower economic activity and a continued depreciation of our dollar. The oil and gas industry right now is the main thing actually propping up our dollar right now. It's our largest export. And the Liberals want to crater it altogether. I'm going to quote a great comment from the past Liberal Minister of Energy, the one who's probably going off tail between his legs to a posting overseas. It says, oil and gas is probably peaking in this year. That was 2024. A year later, the International Energy Association releases a report. Now, the IEA is probably one of the most ideologically captured international organizations. No longer a friend to the oil and gas industry. They actually say demand is going to increase to a record high this year, not a record drop. OPEC and Goldman Sachs say we will have growing demand to 2050. Canada is the third largest surplus producer in the world. And by surplus, there's a difference between what we produce and what we consume. Higher than us is Russia and Saudi Arabia. Shutting down our oil and gas does not mean the world reduces oil and gas consumption. It moves on to the next producer, Russia and Saudi Arabia. Probably in the Kremlin's cafeteria right now, they're changing the Employee of the Month picture to show the Liberal caucus as Employee of the Month, because all it's going to do is drive jobs and money from Canada and put it in the pockets of dictators. We need to reverse that. We need to grow jobs in Canada, revenue in Canada, and not send it away to foreign dictators. Thank you.
Questions and comments. Question en commentaire.
The Honourable Chief Government Whip.
See, the problem with using ChatGPT for this member is he's not the only one that has it. So I asked the same question as him. I said, what countries have regulatory emissions caps? To which the response was European Union, United Kingdom, South Korea, China, Canada, and some United States. So then some of the states. So then I said, okay, well, I bet he asked a really specific question, of which I said, are these oil and gas caps? And the reply was Canada and some of the United States. So what this member is doing is he's selectively choosing information. In reality, according to ChatGPT, his source, jurisdictions with economy-wide caps, which include oil and gas, are the EU, United Kingdom, South Korea, China, Vietnam, and Indonesia. And in addition to that, other countries such as China, Vietnam, and Indonesia are currently exploring them. Would he like to apologize for his misinformation?
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
You certainly always count on the member from Kingston to stand up and blabber mistruths in this House. If he actually looked at it, he would actually say the information says that no one has it similar to Canada or what Canada is proposing. It also quotes, these are oil and gas producing countries. There's not a single major oil and gas producing country in this world that is willfully committing economic suicide or planning economic suicide like this government. This government should wake up and look at reality. The Parliamentary Budget Officer says it will crater our economy. Conference Board of Canada says it will crater our economy. Right. We are in a crisis right now, a looming deficit, productivity crisis, unemployment crisis. It's time for the Liberals to actually get on board and stop their virtue signaling and support Canada.
Question and commentaire.
Questions and comments. John Doe, member for Laurentides-Labelle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I get the feeling that I am decades back. I can't even believe we're in 2025 right now. The topic we're discussing is so behind the times. We're supposed to be concerned about energy transfer. Now we're talking about pipelines, oil, lowering regulations. I'm wondering, Mr. Speaker, are these MPs talking to their electors over the weekends? Because how come it's up to the bloc to say we're taking a step back and we need to take action right now?
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank my colleague from Ogo as well for the question. The reality is oil and gas demand is going to continue to rise for the foreseeable future. And it's either going to be sold to the world by an ethical, lower emission country like Canada, or that is going to be filled in by a higher emission oil producer from Russia, putting money toward dictators promoting war, or it's going to go into countries like Saudi Arabia that actually have higher flaring than Canada. Perhaps in 20, 30 years, when oil production will lower a bit, it might be a proper conversation. But for the foreseeable future, the world is going to need oil and gas. Canada should be the one to provide it, not dictators.
Yes.
Questions and comments. Question and commentaire. The honourable member for Langley Township, Fraser Heights.
Thank you very much. I want to thank my colleague from Edmonton West for a very enlightened speech on an ill-conceived Liberal idea that is going to ruin our oil and gas sector, the emissions production cap. Now, I have a question about another ill-conceived Liberal idea, and that is the North Coast tanker ban. This is what the National Coalition Chiefs says, the CEO, no proponent is going to look at investing in pipeline to the North Coast with that kind of legislation in place, talking about the tanker ban. So I wonder if my colleague could comment on what a productive oil and gas sector could do for Indigenous reconciliation in British Columbia and throughout Canada.
The honourable member for Edmonton West in about 40 seconds.
That's an excellent question. The oil and gas industry is probably the largest private employer of Indigenous in Canada, the largest wealth creator for First Nations. We need economic reconciliation with First Nations, build up jobs, build up prosperity. We need economic reconciliation, not just simple virtue signaling reconciliation that the Liberals offer.